What I'm about to show you is Judd, Frank Caprio's final case before he passed away, and it's the most incredible courtroom moment ever. Recorded, an 84-year-old homeless veteran walks in for stealing a loaf of bread, but when Judge Caprio discovers what this man has been hiding in his shopping cart for 20 years, he stops everything and makes a decision that will leave you sobbing uncontrollably. I'm warning you. Right now, this story will break you emotionally. When Judge Caprio sees what's in that shopping cart, he does something so unprecedented that it changes courtroom history forever. But before we dive into Judge Caprio's most legendary moment, less than half% of you watching are actually subscribed, so please hit that subscribe button, because this story about the greatest judge who ever lived deserves to reach everyone. This isn't just a courtroom case. This is Judge Frank Caprio's legacy, his final gift to humanity, and what happens in the next 30 minutes will restore your faith in compassion, justice, and the power of human kindness. It's a crisp October morning in Providence Municipal Court, and Judge Frank Caprio is preparing for what none of us knew would be his final week on the bench. At 84 years old, Judge Caprio has presided over thousands of cases with the same compassion and wisdom that made him beloved worldwide. The courtroom is packed as usual, a mix of defendants, families, court staff, and even some visitors who have traveled from other states just to witness Judge Caprio's legendary compassion in person. There's an energy in the room, a sense that something special is about to happen. At exactly 10:30 a.m., the bailiff brings in the morning's final case, shoplifting charge that seems routine on paper, but as we'll discover, nothing about this case is routine. Through the courtroom doors shuffles an 84-year-old man named Edward Eddie Sullivan. Eddie moves slowly, painfully, using a makeshift cane carved from a tree branch. His clothes are layers of worn clothing, patched and repatched, telling the story of someone who's been living rough for a very long time. But what catches everyone's attention isn't Eddie himself, it's what he's pulling behind him, an old shopping cart covered with a blue tarp containing what appears to be all his worldly possessions. Eddie is here because 3 days ago he was caught taking a loaf of bread from a corner store without paying. The store manager called the police, and now Eddie faces a shoplifting charge that could result in jail time. But guys, before I tell you about the incredible discovery Judge Caprio is about to make, I need you to do something for me. Tell me in the comments below, where are you watching this from right now? This story deserves to be heard around the world. Are you in Chicago, London, Sydney, Miami? Drop your city below, because Judge Caprio's legacy of compassion needs to spread everywhere. As Eddie approaches the defendant's stand, Judge Caprio immediately notices something that most people would miss. Despite Eddie's obvious poverty and homelessness, he maintains a certain dignity. He removes his worn baseball cap respectfully, stands as straight as his aged body allows, and makes direct eye contact with the judge. Edward Patrick Sullivan, the court clerk, announces, reading from the docket. Eddie steps forward, gripping his makeshift cane with one hand and keeping the other on his shopping cart as if protecting something precious. Judge Caprio looks up from his paperwork with those kind eyes that have shown mercy to thousands of people over his 30-year career. He immediately senses that this isn't just another shoplifting case. Mr. Sullivan, you're charged with shoplifting, specifically taking a loaf of bread valued at $249 from Murphy's Corner store. How do you plead? Quietly, guilty, Your Honor. Eddie says quietly, his voice carrying the gravitas of someone who's lived through things most of us can't imagine. I took the bread, I was hungry. Judge Caprio sets down his pen, that familiar gesture that signals he's about to move beyond the legal formalities into something more human. Mr. Sullivan, can you tell me about your circumstances? Why were you unable to pay for the bread? Eddie glances around the packed courtroom, then back at Judge Caprio. Your Honor, I've been homeless for 8 years now. I live on the streets, try to find work when I can, but at my age, jobs are hard to come by. Judge Caprio's expression softens even more. Mr. Sullivan, may I ask your age? 84, Your Honor. Same as you, I believe. This stops Judge Caprio cold. 2 84-year-old men born in the same year, but leading vastly different lives. One honored and respected, sitting on the judicial bench, the other homeless and hungry, standing before him as a defendant. Thoughtful. Indeed, we are the same age, Mr. Sullivan. Can you tell Me, did you serve our country? Eddie's posture straightened slightly, proudly. Yes, Your Honor, United States Army. Korea, 1952 to 1954. Then Vietnam, 1968 to 1970. Two tour, and guys, if you're already feeling the weight of this story, an 84-year-old homeless veteran, the same age as Judge Caprio stealing. Bred to survive, please hit that like button. This story represents everything that's both broken and beautiful about our system, and your engagement helps stories like this reach the people who need to hear them. Judge Caprio stands up from his bench, his signature move. When something touches him deeply, he walks around to the front, eliminating the formal distance between judge and defendant. Mr. Sullivan, Eddie, you served in 2 wars. Yes, Your Honor, I was 19 when I shipped out to Korea. Came back, thought I was done with war. Then Vietnam happened and they called us back up. Judge Caprio notices that Eddie keeps one protective hand on his shopping cart throughout the conversation. Eddie, I have to ask, what's in the cart? Eddie's entire demeanor changes. His grip tightens on the cart handle, and for the first time, he looks genuinely distressed. Your Honor, it's personal items, nothing illegal, just things that matter to me. Judge Caprio's intuition, honed by decades of reading people, tells him there's something significant here. Eddie, would you be comfortable showing me what's in the cart? I'm not asking as a judge right now. I'm asking as a fellow human being who cares about your story. Eddie looks around the courtroom at the 40-plus people watching this exchange. His hand shakes slightly as he considers the request. Your Honor, people might think I'm crazy when they see what's in here. Eddie, I've been on this bench for 30 years. I've seen everything, and I never thought anyone was crazy for caring about something deeply. Please show us. Eddie takes a deep breath and slowly pulls back the blue tarp covering his shopping cart. What the courtroom sees stops everyone cold. The shopping cart is filled with hundreds of photographs, letters, military documents, and small personal items. Dog tags, a Purple Heart medal, campaign ribbons, and what appears to be a carefully maintained military journal. But that's not the shocking part. As Eddie carefully lifts out some of the photographs, Judge Caprio's eyes widen in amazement. Eddie, are these? Yes, Your Honor, every soldier from my units who didn't make it home, Korea and Vietnam. I've been carrying their pictures and their stories for over 70 years. The courtroom falls into absolute silence. Eddie begins lifting out photograph after photograph, black and white pictures from Korea, color photos from Vietnam, young faces most barely out of their teens, looking at the camera with the mixture of bravery and uncertainty that defines soldiers heading into combat. This is Private Tommy Chen from San Francisco, 19 years old when he died at Chosin Reservoir. He used to show me pictures of his little sister and talk about teaching her to drive when he got home. Judge Caprio moves closer, and as he does, Eddie continues pulling out more photographs and documents. This is Sergeant Mike Rodriguez from El Paso. He was going to marry his high school sweetheart when we got back from Korea, wrote her a letter every single day. He died carrying 3 of his wounded men to safety. And this, Eddie says, his voice beginning to crack, is Lieutenant James Morrison from Maine, 22 years old. He saved my life in Vietnam by throwing himself on a grenade. Last thing he said to me was, tell my mom I died thinking about her apple pie. As Eddie continues showing photographs and sharing stories, people in the courtroom begin to cry. These aren't just old pictures, they're a mobile memorial maintained by a man who refuses to let his brothers be forgotten. Your Honor, I know people think I'm just a crazy old homeless man with a cart full of junk, but these boys, they deserve to be remembered. Their families deserve to know that someone still carries their memory. Judge Caprio's eyes fill with tears as the scope of Eddie's 70-year commitment becomes clear. Eddie, how many soldiers' stories are you carrying? 437, Your Honor. Every name, every face, every story I can remember, I've got. Their letters home, their medals, their personal effects that their families never claimed. I've been their guardian for 7 decades. But Eddie isn't finished. He reaches into the deepest part of his cart and pulls out a worn notebook, edges frayed from decades of handling. This is their book, Your Honor. Every story I could find, every detail about their lives and their deaths. I've been writing it for 70 years, adding to it whenever I learn something new about one of my boys. Judge Caprio takes the notebook with reverent hands and begins reading. His expression changes from amazement to awe, to something approaching worship. Eddie, this is a masterpiece of remembrance. You've created the most comprehensive memorial to forgotten heroes that I've ever seen. But what? Judge Caprio reads next in the notebook. Stops him completely. Eddie, it says here that you've been tracking down families of fallen soldiers and returning their personal effects. How many families have you found? Over 200, Your Honor. Sometimes it takes years, but I find them. I give them their son's last letter or his medal or a picture he carried. I tell them how brave their boy was, how much he was loved by his brothers. Judge Caprio realizes he's looking at a man who has spent 70 years serving others, honoring the dead and comforting the living, all while living in poverty himself. Eddie, you've been homeless for 8 years. Yes, sir. Lost my apartment when my VA disability got cut due to some paperwork error. Been living on the streets since then, but I keep the cart with me. Always, these boys need someone to watch over them, and guys, I need to pause here because what you're witnessing is the most beautiful act of service and remembrance you'll ever see. If you're not subscribed to this channel yet, please hit that button right now. Stories like Eddie's remind us what real heroism looks like, and your support helps us share these incredible human stories with the world. Sadly, Judge Frank Caprio passed away just 2 weeks after Eddie's case, making it his final act of compassion on the bench. But what a way to end a legendary career of service to humanity. Judge Caprio's family said that Eddie's case represented everything their father believed in, that every person deserves dignity, that service to others is the highest calling, and that compassion can change the world. At Judge Caprio's funeral, Eddie Sullivan was given a place of honor in the front row. He brought with him a photograph of Judge Caprio, which he added to his memorial collection. Judge Caprio saved my life and honored my boys, Eddie told mourners. Now he's part of the memorial too. And guys, I want to ask you something that I know Judge Caprio would want me to ask. In the comments below, tell us about someone in your life who deserves recognition for their quiet service to others. Who are they? Unsung heroes in your community. Who are the people making a difference without asking for thanks? Judge Frank Caprio spent 30 years showing us that compassion is a choice we make every single day. Eddie Sullivan spent 70 years proving that love and remembrance can survive any hardship. Drop your stories in the comments because Judge Caprio's legacy lives on in every act of kindness, every moment of compassion, and every decision to see the humanity in others. If this story moved you, if Judge Caprio's final act of compassion and Eddie's lifetime of service touched your heart, please share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that heroes walk among us every single day. Like this video if you believe in honoring our veterans, supporting our homeless, and treating every human being with dignity and respect. Subscribe for more stories that prove Judge Frank Caprio's legacy, that compassion, kindness, and human decency will always triumph over indifference. And remember Judge Caprio's words: justice is not just about following the law, it's about seeing the person behind the case and responding with your heart. Rest in peace, Judge Frank Caprio. Your compassion changed the world one case at a time.